Hello, my name is Ashley Corbally, and this is the second learning teaching interaction. Some things that I have learned this past few weeks in the reading. One thing that really stood out to me is the component display theory, or CDT. And there's two parts of CDT, and the first one is expository, where you present, tell, and show rule. And the second one is inquisitory, when you ask a question or ask for participation. Um, I want to talk about expository first. So for my workshop, I am teaching a preparing for marriage workshop, and I'm splitting it into two lessons, and it's for 16 to 18-year-old young women. And so for expository, part of CDT, you can just tell a rule or a principle. And so an example of this is in my workshop, I'm going to talk about attachment model by Dr. Van Epp. And I'm going to do that by having the attachment model on a PowerPoint and explaining each component of it and just kind of giving them a visual and also just explaining it. And so the second part of the expository is to give an example or tell a story that supports the principle. And so I'm going to do this in my workshop by telling a story in which the elements of relationship attachment model will be made. The model, for me anyways, when I was first learning the model, it was pretty confusing. And so I think by sharing a story, it can help them connect to it and understand a little bit more about what it's about. And there's 5 parts to the model. And so kind of what each element of that is about by sharing a story I probably will share 2 stories, one in how the relationship attachment model was used correctly and one how it was used incorrectly, so that they can kind of see from the story the difference. The second part of the component display theory is inquisitory, which is either questions or asking for participation. So it's so there's 2 parts of inquisitory, and the first part is when the audience expresses rule or principle in their own words and in their own way. So I'm going to do this in my workshop by asking the audience members to tell them what the relationship attachment model means to them. Just kind of, I think by doing that, I'll be able to make sure they understand it, or to see where they are in the understanding of the model, and also just to see their own spin on things. I think that is really interesting too. I think from each other that way by asking how it relates to someone else, and especially their peers might be able to also understand that more. And the second part of inquisitory is to ask for audience to think of their own experience to illustrate the principle or rule. I will also ask the participants of the workshop if they have any stories that relate to the relationship attachment model, maybe how a personal story, how they didn't, or how a friend, or maybe a hypothetical story, or anything. I think if they could tell a story, it's great because they're participating and they're actively thinking. And I think it's also great because people remember stories and it resonates with them a lot more than if I just spit out a bunch of information. That is the component display theory, and that is a little bit about how I'm going to use that in my workshop. The next part I wanted to talk about was a simple formula for effective teaching. And there's 3 elements, the formula for effective teaching, and number 2 was respect, and number 3 was participation. And so relevance refers to making sure that the workshop is relevant for everyone. Everyone is connected to a family somehow and in some way. So there really is no reason why a family life education workshop, since I am teaching marriage preparation course, I'm teaching it for 16 to 18-year-old girls who are at the dating age. So I think that's relevant for them is marriage preparation. It wouldn't be relevant for me to teach them a course on teenagers, because they're teenagers themselves, and they will be at that point one time in their lives, but they're not right now. They're going to tune out and not listen if I would teach them that. It's not relevant. And the second aspect or formula is respect. And I think this respect is just such a vital element in FLE, is you just, like, the teacher and the student, it's just so important for at least the teacher to have respect, and to have respect for what they're teaching. You can't teach respect, to have respect in a relationship with your family, if you don't model respect. And it just kind of makes me think about teachers I've had in high school or college who I just feel like didn't respect their students, and how I just totally would be tuned out, because if they don't care, why should I care? If they don't respect, if they're rude, why would participate and be a good participant in their workshop if they don't care, if they're not showing me the respect? And so, and everyone is respect. And so I think that's really important. The third formula for effective teaching is participation. Family life education is an engaging enterprise. It's all about participation. It's not about just standing statistics on a board and droning on and on and on. And that's not a good way for people to learn, especially my age group. For the workshop, is I'm going to need a lot of participation. I'm going to want a lot of participation. I'm going to want them to really learn a lot from this. And a good way of doing that is for encouraging participation, and for them to be active learners, so that they can remember the information a lot more than if they just sat there. There is a variety of ways in my workshop in which the audience will participate. I have discussion questions, the reading of quotes and stories, sharing of experiences, and I have some like get up and move games and activities that are going to participation. Kind of the last thing that I wanted to talk about were the different forms of group discussions. There's the fishbowl, buzz groups, and the personal narrative stories of life. The fishbowl is when you put the chairs into two circles, one circle, bigger circle, and then one's inside of it. And then the group in the middle discusses and debates while the bigger group is silent and just kind of observing. And the buzz groups are several small groups, and there's one spokesperson share what the small groups discussed about. And then there's the personal narrative stories of life, which I kind of talked about, is that really grounds abstract principles into reality by sharing stories. And I want to do that a lot throughout my workshop. And thank you.